Good morning. Today we will discuss the principle of superposition, and also we will use the equilibrium equations to determine the structural reactions, actually the reactions of external forces on structures. So first we are going to discuss principle of superposition. Uh, it's an important principle which we usually use for structural analysis, and we will see when and how we can use this principle. So let's read from here. The principle of superposition forms the basis for much of the theory of structural analysis. It may be stated as follows. So the total displacement or internal loadings, that means stress, at a point in a structure subjected to several external loadings can be determined by adding together the displacements or internal loadings caused by each of the external loads acting separately. So if we just want to give an explanation to this principle, let us have a simply supported beam drawn here. Simply supported beams means it has two simple supports. One can be hinge and another can be a roller. Then it will be stable, at the same time it will be statically determinate. Just one member and with one hinge support and one roller support. If both are roller, then it will be unstable because it can move horizontally then. So one must be hinge, another must be a roller to be statically determinate for a one member structure. So if we have two force, for example, P1 and another force at this location, P2, then the principle of superposition says that the effect of external forces, the effect means the internal effects. What are the internal effects? The internal effects are axial force, shear force, bending moment, and torsional stresses. So if we want to determine the internal effects of these external forces in this structure, the principle of superposition suggests that you can do just by applying P1 force alone without P2 applied on this structure, and then removing the P1 and applying P2 only in this structure, and just by summing up the forces from P1 and P2. So we can just have the total impact of both of these forces by applying P1 force at a time and P2 force at another instance of time, and then by just simply adding its algebraic sum, simply adding or algebraically, simply adding the effects of these forces algebraically will give you the total reactions. So what I can say is, for example, if this is L by 4, for example, and also this is L by 4, and that's L by 2, let's say. The reaction at the left support RA will be under P1 force only, equal to, we know, 3/4 of P1. And if we just remove P1 force and apply P2 only, then the reaction at RA will be P2 over 4 only. That means 1/4 of P2. So the principle of superposition suggests that the total reaction RA under these both forces will be just the algebraic sum. Means if they are positive or negative, you must consider those signs actually. So the total reactions will be the algebraic sum of both of these forces applied individually on this structure. So algebraic sum means, for example, the upward reaction, if we consider it as positive, so under P1 force, the RA component of reaction will be upward. So let's assume that's positive. And under P2 force, we also know and we will determine in today's class that the reaction will be upward also, and its magnitude will be P2 by 4. So that's plus as well. So we can just sum them algebraically to determine the total reaction at RA. So that's the principle of superposition. And we use this for structural analysis. However, there are some limitations when you cannot apply the principle of superpositions. What are them? Here are the two limitations or two condition when you can apply this principle or not. Let us state the limitations and we will go further. For this statement to be valid, it is necessary that a linear relationship exists among the loads, stresses, and displacements. So, an important factor here, the member behaves elastically. That means the stress strain response is a linear curve. For example, for concrete, we know the stress strain response is something like this. So this is a strain, that's a stress, and that's for concrete. So up to certain point, the stress strain is a linear curve. That means it's proportional. Okay. So, and at this level, we define the slope as the modulus of elasticity E. So a linear relationship exists among loads, stresses, and displacements. So stresses, displacements, we know we just plot force displacement response, moment rotation response, and also a stress strain response. So here we can relate stress with strain, moment with rotation, force with displacements. So a really linear relationship between them exists. For example, if the force, the displacement under force increases linearly, the rotation under moment increases or decreases linearly, and stress varies proportionally with a strain and follows a linear curve. When it will happen? If the material is elastic actually. So most of the elastic material behaves in a linear fashion. That's why we are calling it this linear relationship exists when the material behaves elastically. So elastic material behavior. Okay, I am just writing this term. So the member must behave elastically. That means we can use the modulus of elasticity E, modulus of elasticity E for structural analysis. In lot of terms, you will see that EI actually, E and I, we use both of this term to define stiffness, where I is the moment of inertia and E is the modulus of elasticity. So if your material does not behave elastically, then you cannot use this elastic modulus for structural analysis. However, in most of the structural analysis, we perform the analysis using modulus of elasticity. That means there is an underlying assumption that the member or structure behaves elastically. So that's why you use this term E in structural analysis. However, there are some structural analysis methods, especially for earthquake analysis. For example, nonlinear nonlinear time history analysis. In that case, we assume the structure to behave non-linearly. That means the plastic deformation happens in structure or member. So in that case, we use a different modulus of elasticity. Okay, that's plastic modulus of elasticity or equivalent modulus of elasticity. There are some terms there. However, for now and for you up to your graduation, I will say you can just as use the modulus of elasticity, that means the elastic modulus for structural analysis. So the first condition is to use the principle of superposition, the structure must behave as an elastic one. To satisfy this requirement, to satisfy the limitations actually or requirements, two requirements must be imposed for the principle of superposition to apply. If you want to apply the this principle, two requirements must be satisfied. What are them? The number one is the material must behave in a linear elastic manner so that Hooke's law is valid and therefore the load will be proportional to displacement. I think I have discussed this one. So if the member is elastic, the displacement under force will be proportional. That means if the force increases, the displacement will increase linearly, proportionally. If the moment increases, the rotation will increase linearly. If the stress increases, the strain will increase linearly. So that's the principle. That means you can just uh, determine the displacement, for example, under P1 individually, and also the displacement under P2 individually, and then you can add the displacement under both of these forces to determine the total displacement under these forces. So that's the explanation. The number 2 requirement is the geometry of the structure must not undergo significant change when the loads are applied. That means we know no body is perfectly rigid. That means every material is plastic, actually. It will deform under forces. So if you just apply force P, then there will be deformation. But this displacement cannot be large enough so that the principle of superposition cannot be applied anymore. So under forces means under force and moments or moment couples, your structure must not undergo huge displacement and huge significant change in shape, for example. And if that happens, you cannot apply the principle of superposition. Small displacements theory applies. That means we can use the moment area theorem, for example, to determine the displacement of a member or a structure. So those principles also applies for small displacement members. You cannot use those methods for large displacement structure. Okay, large displacements will significantly change the position and orientation of the loads. An example would be a cantilever thin rod applied to a subjected to a force at its ends. So that's the limitation, and that's the principle of superposition. And we most of the time you will see we will use this principle to determine the shear force, bending moment, and displacements, all sort of unknown things in our structural analysis. Now I will move to the discussion on use of equilibrium equations to determine the reactions from external forces. So if we apply some forces on our structure, then to determine its internal effects, we must determine the reactions at supports of those external forces first. To do that, as we have discussed earlier, for a coplanar structure, we have these three equations of equilibrium, and for equilibrium, these three equations must be satisfied, and we can just applying these equations, we can determine the reaction forces of this structure. I will just read part of this because it's important. It shows how structural analysis and designs are carried out in practice. Occasionally, the members of a structure are connected together in such a way that the joints can be assumed as pins. Building frames and trusses are typical examples that are often constructed in this manner. Provided a pin-connected coplanar structure is properly constrained and contains no more supports or members than are necessary to prevent collapse, the forces acting at joints and supports can be determined by applying these three equations of equilibrium to each member. Let me explain once we finish the para here. Understandably, once the forces at joints are obtained, the size of the members, connections, and supports can then be determined on the basis of design code specifications. So, uh, you need to uh, idealize your structure first from the loading diagram and the orientation of members. Then you apply the external force on this building or whatever it is, the frame is. Then you use the principle of equilibrium to determine the equations of equilibrium to determine the external reactions, and from them you analyze your structure to determine the internal effects such as axial force, shear force, bending moment, and torsion. And then you design, that means you determine the sectional dimensions and reinforcing amount to carry out those internal forces. So that's how design is carried out. And remember, you can use the principle or the equations of equilibrium for statically determinate structures only. That means the condition R equal to 3n must be satisfied. If R is greater than 3 times n, then it's indeterminate, right? We have learned this in our previous class. So your structure must be determinate if you want to analyze it using these three equations of equilibrium. And so let me just go with this structure a bit. Here you can see this structure has three members. It's like a scissor form, and it has two supports. The top one at A is hinge and the bottom one at C is a roller. So to analyze this structure, first we determine whether it's statically determinate or statically indeterminate. And to do that, what was our principle? We just first calculate the number of reaction forces. So the number of reactions will be, as you can see, this one has two reaction force, this one has one reaction force at supports. And at the same time, when we take the free body of these members, as you can see in figure B here, we will have two forces at pin D, as you can see, dy dx, and that must act on the other member in equal magnitude but in opposite direction. So this 4 is just 2, and we will have two force components or reaction component at E as well. Then we will have two force component at B. So we have total unknown of 2, 1, 2, 2, and 2. So we have total unknown reactions, 9 unknown reactions. That means the R is equal to 9. And we have three members, 1, 2, and 1. That means we have three members actually. So N is equal to 3 here. So R minus 3n is equal to 9 minus 3 times 3. That means it's 0. So if R minus 3n is equal to 0, then it's statically determinate. So our considered structure turns out to be statically determinate. Sorry.
Hello, sir. Assalamualaikum, sir. Sir, recording to talk for sir.
Okay, so our structure turns out to be statically determinate. That means we can determine all the support reactions and internal pin reactions using the equilibrium of equations. So to do that, we can take the equilibrium of equations, we can apply the equilibrium equations on this structure as a whole, and also we can apply those equilibrium equations for each component of these members. For example, we can just take the moment, summation of moment at point A for the whole structure. At the same time, we can take the summation of moment at A for just this horizontal member ADB only. As well, in addition to that, we can apply the equilibrium of equations for member DE and also the member BEC. So whatever way you take the equilibrium equations, there will be maximum 9 equilibrium equations. Okay, we know the number of equilibrium equation is equal to how many, is equal to 3 times n actually. So number of equilibrium equations available, by you can write number of equilibrium equations, আমি এভাবে লিখি equilibrium, how many equilibrium equations you can write? That's equal to 3 times n. N is the number of member, how many members are there. So you can see there are 3 members here, so we can have maximum 3 times n, that means 9 equilibrium equations for this member. So whatever way you write, and if you can write more than this, there will be some repetitions of equilibrium equations. So to emphasize once again, you can just apply the equilibrium equation for the whole structure. At the same time, you can apply the equilibrium equation for its components as well. And that's how you can determine all the reaction components. And once the reaction components are known, then you can determine the internal effects of these reactions and external forces in the member. And we will learn that in next classes, how to determine the internal effects of external forces. One important thing here I want to discuss. So for example, that structure is simplified just by removing the vertical member here. You see, in the previous example, we had a vertical member here, and now we have removed it, and the internal reactions have turned out to be 2 and 2, and we have replaced this with a roller, with a hinge here. You can see, if this is a roller for this structure, it will be unstable, okay? But with a hinge here and a hinge there, this is not collapsible. That means it's stable now, statically stable. And at the same time, if you just go with the analysis, number of reactions and number of members, you will see that it's still statically determinate. But in real design, we hardly use statically determinate structure for buildings, I will say. But for bridge structures, sometimes we use the statically determinate framing system. However, for buildings actually, and multi-story buildings, we usually do not use statically determinate structures. So in real practice, most of the structure you will encounter or design that will be statically determinate. And why we intentionally make structures statically determinate? I am just saying that we intentionally make structures statically determinate. Why? Because for statically determinate structures, if just one member fails, then whole structure is prone to collapse. So we don't want our structure to collapse. If we just have more frame, and if we have high in degree of indeterminacy, that means if there are more reactions than that is required for equilibrium, then we have some redundancy in our structure. That means if one component of a structure fails, the others can come in and take that forces, and the structure will not be collapsible. So to prevent collapse, we intentionally sometimes make our structure statically indeterminate, and sometimes we just increase the structural indeterminacy to make our structure more stable, and also uh, it prevents the collapse. At the same time, it increases the energy dissipation to reduce the lateral sway or displacement under earthquake and wind forces. So that's another important thing to know, that most of the structure we'll encounter in practice are going to be statically indeterminate, and we intentionally make our structures statically indeterminate to prevent collapse. Okay. So here is the summary how we follow the principle of superposition, at the same time how we analyze our structure using the equilibrium equations. First of all, we need to determine or draw the free body diagrams, and then we use the equilibrium equations to determine the reaction forces. I think I have discussed those things, and it has already been covered. I am not going to explain those again. Now I'm going to discuss or show a few examples to determine the reaction of external forces using the principle or equations of equilibrium. So this is a very simple example, and we'll just show how we can analyze it, not analyze actually, how we can determine the external intern reactions of external forces. So this is a beam member, you can see, determine, and we need to determine the reactions on the beam. It has a pin support at the left end, which is a hinge basically, and it has a roller support at point B, and it has a 7 feet overhang with a cantilevered or moment couple at the end of this cantilever with a magnitude of 50 feet. So as you know, we just need to determine the orientation of axis in determining the reactions applying the equation of equilibrium. So first we need to assign coordinate system here. We usually use the member longitudinal axis, either x or y axis, for example. So along the longitudinal axis of this member, we orient our x axis. Then y will be just perpendicular to this axis, and g will be perpendicular to the plane of this xy axis. That means perpendicular to xy plane. So that will be perpendicular to the board we are watching now. So we can just write three equilibrium equations here. One is summation of horizontal force in x direction is equal to 0. Then summation of vertical forces in y direction is equal to 0. And then summation of moment in z axis actually will be equal to 0. A lot of students I have seen, they are confused about the axis of moment. So we will consider the rotation about z axis, and as you can see, the 60 key force, it will have a vertical component in this direction and it will have a horizontal component in this direction. So about z axis, this vertical component will create a clockwise rotation, and at the same time this 50 kip will also create a clockwise rotation about z axis. These two forces cannot create any rotation about x axis, nor it can about y axis. So the rotation will be about the axis perpendicular to the board actually, that means the z axis. So summation of moment about a or summation of moment about support b, that will be about z axis. Okay, so here we have just resolved our 60 kip incline load into its vertical and horizontal component. We know at the left support there will be one vertical reaction at one and one horizontal reaction, which is shown here as ay and ax respectively. And at roller support b there will be just one vertical reaction, which is by. And that's the idealized structure for me. We could replace the beam with just a single line like this. Okay, in that case it will be just like a line diagram. So we have 50 feet moment here, and that's 7 feet. We have a vertical reaction here and a horizontal reaction here, and we have the component of inclined forces like this: 60 sine 60 degree, and horizontal component is 60 sine cos 60 degree. So that's the idealized structure. Now we can apply these three equation of equilibrium to determine the reaction of the external forces. So we have made the free body, then we have the idealized structure, and now we can use the equilibrium of equation of equilibrium. So when we write the horizontal force equilibrium of horizontal forces, we sum up all the forces in x direction, and of course there are some forces which can act rightward and some force which can act leftward. So we just take the rightward force as positive. You see the arrow sign shows rightward, and that's positive. So we assumed ax is working in the rightward direction, that's why it's positive. And the other horizontal force acting on this member is the horizontal component of the 60 kip incline force, and that's working in the leftward direction, so that's negative. And we must sum in algebraically. Arithmetic sum means you just add them up, but algebraic means you consider the sign, that means the direction of the force. So if rightward is positive, then the leftward must be negative. That's how algebraic sum works. And these are the two horizontal forces working in this member, and their summation must be equal to 0, from which we get the horizontal reaction as 30.0 kip. At the same time, we want to apply the moment moment equilibrium at point A, so that we can know the reaction, vertical reaction at B. So if you want to apply the moment at A, so what are the forces that's contributing to moment at A? And definitely moment at A is about z axis. Okay, the hidden term is about z axis here. And we assume that it's up to you whether you want to assume the clockwise moment positive or anti-clockwise moment positive. Here they assumed anti-clockwise moment as positive. So about point A, the force that's contributing to anti-clockwise moment, we will assume that as positive. So about point A, as we know, the force that passes through the point we are considering moment about, their force, their moment is 0, because there is no moment arm. So the moment for at A about moment about at A about z axis of AY and AX is 0. However, there will be moment of this vertical component of 60 kip inclined force, which will be clockwise. That means it will be negative, and the moment is, as we know, moment is equal to force times perpendicular distance on this force to this force from the point we are taking the moment about. So if, as you can see, the distance from point A, the perpendicular distance from point A to the vertical component of this force is 10 feet. That's why they are multiplying it with 10. And how about the let me see. So because this, I don't know if you can clearly see it here or not, this 60 key force is acting at the top of this beam, and the beam depth is total 2 feet. That means from x-axis, the horizontal component of the inclined force is acting at a distance of 1 feet. That means it is creating one anti-clockwise moment component. So we need to add this component to our calculation. That's why they are adding this horizontal force with a moment arm of 1 feet of 1 feet. So this is just contributing to the anti-clockwise moment, and that's why it's positive. And also the vertical reaction at B, that's By, and it's working upward. That means it's creating a anti-clockwise rotation about axis about point A. So that's going to be positive also. And the moment arm is 10 plus 4 feet, total 14 feet. And there is a moment couple, pure moment at the rightmost end of this beam. And about point A, this 50 feet moment is creating a clockwise moment. So it's rotating clockwise direction. And that's going to be negative because we assumed anti-clockwise moment as positive. So this sum will be equal to 0, and which gives us By equal to 38.5 kip. Now, if we just make the equilibrium of vertical forces, assuming vertically upward forces positive, we can have this summation of these three components of forces, and we can get the vertical reaction at A equal to 13.4 kip. So that's how we analyze our structure. Wherever you take the moment, remember, you can, it's up to you whether I should take the clockwise moment as positive or anti-clockwise moment positive. That's not going to impact your analysis or calculation. And also, if you do not understand whether a reaction component will work upward or downward, or for horizontal reaction, whether it will be rightward or leftward, just assume in one direction and follow the calculation procedure. If the if the reaction actually works in the opposite direction, in your calculation you will get a negative sign, which means that, for example, in this example, I cannot imagine whether AX will be rightward or leftward. And let's say we assumed it clockwise, sorry, rightward, and AX are turned out to be positive, a positive value. That means the direction we assumed is as it is. That means it's acting rightward direction. However, for example, if we assumed it to work in the leftward direction, if you proceed with this assumption and calculate your reaction, you will get a negative value of 30 kip. And with a negative value of 30 kip, that means the direction of AX force is just reverse of what you have assumed. So in that case, you just reverse its direction here. Let's go for another example and then we will learn more. I think you know how triangular load works. I'll just discuss this one too. Because of time constraint, I will not go with this one, but I will go with a frame. So this is a frame with two members connected at this point rigidly. Actually, this tube makes the beam as one beam only. So it has one member. Let's read the problem statement. Determine the reactions on the beam in figure 230A. Assume A is pin and the roller's support at B is roller. So B is a roller, that means it can have only vertical reaction. This can have vertical reaction only, a roller. And A is a pin. Here is a support, as you can see in gray color. A is a pin, so it will have a vertical reaction AY and a horizontal reaction, for example, AX. And B can have the reaction in this direction, so we will say that's RB. Now we need to determine the support reaction here. So we just make the free body of this structure and we can just have the line diagram as well. Let me just say something here as well. You can see the top inclined force act on the top surface of the beam. That's why the horizontal component of this force created a moment about the x-axis, because we assumed x-axis through the centroidal longitudinal axis of this beam. However, in linear structure, not linear, in idealized structure, when we idealize the structure, we usually do not consider those moments. We assume that the horizontal component of this force will act through the centroid as well. So if you don't want to consider the little impact of the moment that's going to be created due to eccentricity in beam members especially, you can just neglect that and use a line diagram to represent the problem. For example, if we want to draw an idealized structure and a linear with a line diagram, then we will have AY here and AX here. We will have a vertical reaction on vertically on the member axis actually. If that's the member axis, then this reaction will be vertical, perpendicular to that, not vertical, perpendicular to that. So that's say NB or RB, and we have how much forces? There is a 500 distributed 500 per feet distributed load, and that's uniformly distributed. So we have this uniformly distributed load here, 500 pound per feet, and we know this length is 7 feet, and that's 3 feet. 7 feet, and this vertical distance is 3 feet. We need to know the vertical distance of this inclined part too, and that's 4 feet. So that's the idealized structure, I will say, and we can just use the principle of equilibrium or equation of equilibrium to determine the support reaction. So resolving NB into X and Y components and summing moments about A yields a direct solution for NB. Why? Let's see how it works and why. Using this result, we can then obtain AX and AY. So just as we said, we need to determine our x-axis and y-axis and z-axis too. Let us assume that this is our x-axis and that's going to be our y-axis. So z-axis will be perpendicular to this plane. That means if we want to sum the horizontal forces and make their equilibrium, then NB must have two components, in horizontal and in vertical direction. That means we need to resolve the NB into NBX component and NBY component. So that's why actually the answer to this why is that, because we are assuming the x-axis to pass through the horizontal portion of this frame along the longitudinal axis of the horizontal portion of this frame. So let's see how they have taken the equilibrium equations, and they are summing the moment equilibrium first about point A. So we are taking the moment at A about Z axis, and we are considering anti-clockwise moment as positive moment. So the impact of this 500 pound per feet acting over 7 feet, as you know, uniformly distributed loads, the impact is determined from its reaction. So 500 times 7, 500 pound per feet acting over 7 feet gives a total force of 3500 pound, and we know that acts at the centroid of this force. So 7 feet, centroid of 7 feet will be 3.5 feet from the left support. So that's how they are showing here too. Excuse me. So you can see in this figure too, the impact of this distributed load is just a concentrated load with 3500 pound in magnitude and acting at a location of 3.5 feet from the left support. So just summarize the moment of all these forces about point A. 3500 pound is creating a clockwise moment. That means it's creating a clockwise rotation about axis G at point A. So the clockwise moment is negative and the magnitude is 3500 times 3.5. The horizontal component of NB, that is NBX, is creating a clockwise moment about this axis. You can see this is going to create a clockwise rotation. So that's anti-clockwise rotation. That means it's positive. And as you can see from this diagram, these dimensions are 4. The inclination angle is, this is 4 feet, and that's the vertical is 3. So not this one actually, about here. So this is the force. If we want to transfer our angle to about this NB axis, I think we have learned these things from engineering mechanics or analytic mechanics. This dimension will is going to be 4, that's going to be 3, and that's going to be 5. So nbx will be nb times the horizontal component will be 4/5, and vertical component of this force nby will be nb times 3/5. So that's why they are taking 4/5 times nb, and the moment arm is 4 feet here. Also, the vertical component of nb, that's going to create a clockwise anti-clockwise rotation too, so that's positive moment, and its magnitude is going to be 3/5 of nb, and the moment arm is total 10 feet here. So that's how you sum up all the all the moments of all the forces, and that's going to give you an nb value of 1.33 kip. Now you have summation of horizontal force equal to 0. If you use this equilibrium equation, there are two force components in horizontal direction only. One is ax, and I assumed ax to work in the rightward direction. And if we use the rightward direction positive, that's why ax is positive here. And nbx is going to work in the leftward direction, and the magnitude is 4/5 times nb, and they have written here in pound, so you can just use it in kips like 1.3533 kip, and you can get the horizontal reaction at ax equal to 1.07 kip. You can also apply the vertical summation of vertical forces equal to 0 to get the vertical reaction ay, and you can see we assumed ay to work in the upward direction, and the total vertical number of vertical forces acting in vertical directions are 3: ay 3500 pound and the vertical component of reaction nb. So we assumed upward force to be positive, and you can just write the summation of these forces to determine the vertical reaction at A. So we get this reaction at A in the vertical direction AY as 2.7 kip. So I think that's how we determine the external reactions of external forces on beams and frames. We will discuss more beams and frames in the coming classes, and we will then determine the internal effects, that means the axial force, shear force, bending moments um, uh, in the structure, in the components of the structure, and from that we can also determine their displacements and stresses as well. So today's class is up to this point. We will stop here now.